Okay, if I could call the meeting to order, folks. We got a lot of stuff to do tonight.
Is Diane calling in?
She is in.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, hello.
I almost burned.
Okay,
I am so over
and a lot of stuff tonight. And they have a meeting at 6, and they want us out by 10.
Totally come bundled up in a space heater.
Is this most up to date? It was by the printer.
It's warm out today.
It is, but this room just, I think the heat goes on.
Supposed to just jumping right back in and give some idea of what we wanted to address.
We are, right? Or not?
What?
I thought we were.
Well, we may. Is your hearing Thursday night, right? The budget hearing for you is Thursday night?
No, not this week.
Next week.
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday, and the school is tomorrow night. Hearing.
We're here tomorrow night?
The school has a budget hearing tomorrow
Tomorrow
night.
night, right. And are we in?
And the selectmen have one Thursday morning.
We have a work session.
Work
That's where they
session.
said they needed our work by then.
We don't have one on Thursday night then.
We don't know that yet. We'll know that by the time we leave today.
Oh.
Right. So we really wanted to
We have a meeting on Thursday this
walk
week.
through just the synopsis. But that's-
We have to come to school.
We already did this.
No, well, George, you're certainly welcome to
Well,
come.
I'm very good.
Okay. Oh, yes, will do. Thank you.
Approach these.
So we're working off this sheet still?
That's different than the one we've got
Today
here.
was the last day to submit petition warrant articles.
So we have new ones?
So you left as of 4 o'clock, which was the final cutoff.
There may be something that they're counting the ballots on, I mean the signatures on, as I was walking out the door, but I've got the newest printout that was
Okay.
on the printer.
Okay, well, we probably should take that printout, we should mark off what we've already addressed, and then figure out what else we need to address. Diane, I'll try to make sure you can follow along with what we're doing as far as the articles,
And I'll
okay?
scan it for you, Diane, tonight and send it to you.
Yes, Muffy faxed or actually emailed me a copy of
Need to
last
send
week.
that
So
somewhere.
if it's different than last week, just let me know,
Yeah, it
okay?
is different a little bit, yeah.
I know that there were 2 this afternoon, Tri-County Cat and Boys and Girls Club came in.
They came racing in at the last minute.
That's right.
This, I don't like I do, I like it. We all do
I'll
it.
do it.
So this should have this date on it. No.
We get another copy?
Yeah, one more left?
We could share ours.
I got it.
Here you go.
So first,
Okay.
on the new
No, it
sheet,
wouldn't be.
Yep, go ahead, I'm sorry.
He's checking to see if his is different. It is different
on
than
the
this
new
one.
sheet, can we?
Let's go through.
I'll give you
These are
one.
not the ones we voted on already.
Yes, yep.
Tell us the numbers on the new sheet that we've
Oh,
already
your number's
done.
already on there, yeah.
Yeah, we put the vote that we had record of, and there was one that I wanted to verify,
Okay.
and that was on number 26 on this new page you're handing out.
If you want to re-vote, I can vote on that. I was off the board by then, I forgot.
Chamber of Commerce?
I was off the board by, we voted on it last Tuesday, and I was off the board by last Tuesday.
That was 6-0.
No, it wasn't,
No,
it was
there's
5-1. Or an
The first
abstention.
one was 5-1 with
5
one
to 1.
abstention.
And I can, if you need to, I can go off of that.
But the one that we had in question was number 26. I had 7-0, and for some reason we thought it should have been 6-0 with one abstention.
I have that. Hold on, I'm pulling up the notes.
Thank you, Heather.
That's, I was waiting to see your
Sorry,
minutes.
I'm like still getting caught up. Hold on. Each quarter.
That's because I'm not abstaining.
I think we did that,
That's
didn't we
right.
also
You can leave it
do
like it is anyway,
pathways
but I will vote
and
yes on it.
Caleb?
Mm-hmm.
Is that on here? Am I missing it?
Next, back side.
Oh, back page, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
That's Caleb, yeah.
That was 6-1.
I think 26 was the same. I'm thinking 7.
26, Chamber of Commerce. 6-0 with one abstention.
Okay. I had a question on that.
Sorry.
6-0 with one abstention. And we're not, there's no calling for the abstentions.
No.
Okay.
Caleb was 6-0.
Well, there
Oh, wait, it
is,
is, okay.
there is now. We
Right.
didn't have one
So
before.
it's 6-0 on number 26
Yeah,
Yes.
and one abstention.
And where's the abstention, George?
yes.
Yes, which he didn't have to do, but he did, so it's okay.
We can just leave it.
Alrighty.
Excuse me, am I to understand that, and maybe this is for Heather, that on 25, it was 5-1 plus one abstention, which would have been the same 7 people, right?
5, 1, and 1.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Good.
Now, the papers, the lines in yellow
Yeah.
are petitions that we received. The ones in white, we have not received, as of I know, as of my knowledge right now.
Well, let's work
And the
on-
one with
Girl Scouts,
green,
yes.
we were told it was coming in, it may be over there now.
Okay,
They were
Okay,
working on signatures manually today.
So you didn't get the Boys and Girls Club?
No, they came in just before I left to
Oh,
come
they
here.
did come in,
Mhm.
okay.
They came in and, the Tri-County Transit was.
so 29 was received today,
Mhm.
which is what, 1-9?
Yes.
and Heather, do we have a set of minutes from the class?
I haven't had a chance to finish them.
Okay, so,
I have-
no, I'm just asking because if they were, but if not.
No,
we'll-
I
we'll-
meant to, but I had
No,
a
no.
crazy day today.
No, no,
so-
and we appreciate your effort, you know.
I have minutes, I just haven't gone,
I haven't
No, no.
ticked them off.
no.
Okay, looking ahead, folks, we originally remember this meeting was scheduled for Thursday, and we moved it to today to try to get ahead of things. And looking at the size of the stuff that we need to address today, is everybody available if this meeting ends up, either a new meeting or this meeting has to continue until Thursday afternoon, same time?
I thought this all had to be done by Thursday, during the day, no?
We'd like it done, but for the selectmen's meeting,
Yeah.
work session on Thursday,
Which is in the morning.
which is in the morning. I still have on my calendar, the budget committee meets again Thursday, just in case there was some things that
Well,
you
we'll need-
still,
I don't know if I'll be here, but I'll do my best to.
Okay. all
I
right.
could call in if we had ability. I may not travel now because of the weather forecast, but it's
Okay,
supposed to be
well,
big.
I'll be here because
Jimmy?
I still got a dozen items I want to hit on the main budget.
Catherine?
Yeah, Carol,
Carolyn,
yeah,
Sorry. I had to,
I'll be here.
Thank you. Sorry, Carol. Did anybody ever call you Catherine?
Well, let's see, my fourth husband.
don't even start with that, Timmy, okay, just,
My apologies.
so we're gonna do the yellow things, is that what we're doing today to start out with? 'Cause those are all in, right?
Yeah, but I mean, obviously, we discussed a lot the last time. You know, we had a lot of discussion, obviously, on the fire department, which I think we need to address all that stuff. So I guess what's the pleasure as far as starting and, or what the selectmen would most like to have feedback on, ready for on Thursday? I guess that those are the ones we
Everything.
Have you made,
Well, okay, well,
have you made any further changes to the budget since the last meeting?
No. Do you,
This-
yeah,
this is a list of changes that were done at the last meeting that I went through.
Yeah,
This is a summary of them,
of the selectmen's changes.
of the selectmen's changes and the town manager changes,
Right,
including adding the new firefighter.
Okay,
the
they're
budget.
already in here.
They're already in there.
okay.
The budget we got last week?
Yes.
Yes. Can we quickly go, you know, what I don't want us to do is lump like we did last year, some of the Health and Human Services things, and then it ended up looking like the budget committee was against them when we really didn't get to them. I'd love us to quickly go through those, because they've already been turned in, they did their work on time, and then go back to the police and the fire
I thought
department.
if we didn't meet with them, we just kind of automatically say no to them.
What?
Right?
Excuse
If we
me?
don't meet with these agencies, don't we just say no anyway?
No, I don't think so at all. We know enough about them from what they've presented to the selectmen and all.
No, I thought that's what you did in the past.
Oh.
That's what
If
you
we don't
said.
vote on them, it's a no for us.
Yeah.
If we
Oh, if we don't vote on them, it's a no.
But if we don't vote on them unless we meet with them, and there's nobody here to meet with.
I didn't know that.
No, I
I don't
didn't
think
do
it's
that.
true.
No, it's
I don't
not
think that's so,
necessarily.
I
Ralph.
think it's true.
Yeah.
Oh,
No.
I thought that's the way I understood it last time. If they didn't come in.
Sorry,
let's
guys,
send-
Diane, please.
We will
Diane?
know.
Yes.
Just a point of clarification, I understand that, but we have heard from the different agencies, they did present, and I kind of go along with Ralph, they should be presenting to us. I understand that we know most of these agencies, but I think we still have time on them. I know that we have a scheduled meeting on Thursday, but let's get to the ones that aren't petition warrant articles in order to help the selectmen come to their decisions. We still have time, I think, on the petition warrant articles to give a vote one way or the other before it appears on a ballot.
So your
Is that
suggestion
right?
would be is that we start with the fire,
Bud-
police,
No, she's in the budget, I think.
those
Yeah.
warrant articles, Diane?
Because the selectmen will be acting upon those, and I still think we have time for the petition warrant articles, at some other time.
Okay. Okay, so if everybody's in agreement with that, okay. We had obviously rather extensive discussion last time on the fire department. Both the chief and Chad presented their different thoughts, if you would, on the ambulance service. And also we talked about the Sunday coverage that had changed from being filled by the part-time fireman to being filled by a full-time new hire fireman in addition to one call company with part-time personnel. Is that right?
That's right. There was no shift coverage before. We didn't have coverage on Friday. We just had the on-call system.
Sunday.
Yeah, Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well anyway, so so Article 14, Fire Department, Special EMS Service Revolving Revenue Fund. Article 15, Ambulance Purchase, 5 years. And is there another article relative to the Sunday coverage?
Well, these aren't really, these wouldn't just be Sunday coverage. These are the contingency plan for fire-based EMS.
Right. But is there a separate article for?
No, that's in the
Number
budget.
13.
That's in the budget.
13.
Okay.
EMS budget is 13.
No, so he's asking about the Sunday coverage
Oh.
specifically. Yeah, that's built into the default.
The only thing I'm worried about this whole thing on the ambulance, and I'm all for it, but if we're only gonna have 2 guys for the ambulance and the fire department, is that correct, Ken? Joey? If we put an ambulance, we're still only gonna have 2 personnel between the fire department and the police, ambulance service at all times. So we're really losing 2 people. You're
But we're
losing 2
adding-
ambulance,
but we're
you're
adding
losing
one.
2 Calex people.
He's talking about on the specific shift.
You're saving almost,
Joe, I understand, I understand what you're saying, no, you're not saying it because you're spending it here.
and
But what I'm concerned with just having 2 people on to cover both the ambulance and the fire.
we have 2 people on shift, we have part-time personnel to supplement, we have on-call, and we have off-duty.
But on call, if you've got an emergency, you've got on call,
Yep.
that's 2
Yes,
to 15
Diane.
minutes getting here.
Hey,
That's
so
not
whoever
very
is
good.
speaking from the
George,
fire
it's just
department
like any other
needs to be
department
close
out
to a
there
mic,
does
please.
the
Okay.
same thing.
Chief, if you wouldn't mind coming up here so that Diane can hear your,
Right now, there's 2 Calix people and 2 firemen at all times, right?
Except on Sunday. Except on Sunday,
Except on Sunday. Now in the future, there's gonna be 2 people, period.
2 firefighters.
So we're losing 2 people
That's
on
what
emergency
worries me.
calls.
I know, that's
So if the
what-
2 firemen are out, you got nobody covering the
That's or
ambulance.
vice versa.
You gotta wait till somebody gets called in.
Right.
maybe can we get back? You formulated a study committee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Who was on that study committee?
Do you have the names with you?
Yeah.
I've got them on my phone, but.
Do you guys want to come up here so Diane can hear you, please?
Sure.
Thank you. So I can hear you.
we're gonna make this better, Diane, okay?
Can you hear us,
All right.
Diane?
I can, thank you.
All right.
Okay, so who's on the fire department today? Who put this committee together? Selectmen?
We put a call out for, interested participants, and we also reached out to different people who have a background. So we wanted someone from the hospital, somebody who could represent the populations of need, elderly population, somebody from the fire department, somebody from the police department.
Okay, so who are the people that are on this?
So the board appointed Dr. Edward Duffy. He's the Senior Vice President of Medical Affairs and the Chief Medical Officer for Littleton Regional Hospital.
Okay.
He's also our Medical Director. Georgine Novak, who is the Executive Director of the River Glen House.
Yeah,
Timothy Muldoon, who is a firefighter AMT and our union president.
in the fire department?
Correct.
Okay.
Bill Latulip, who is a call firefighter with the department. Yes. I won't tell him you said that.
That's okay. He's younger than I am.
Reverend Curtis Metzger, who is the rector over here at All Saints Episcopal Church. Sergeant Rick Ball from the Littleton Police Department, who is also, from what I understand, a former EMT. And the town manager, Andrew Dorset.
Are you an EMT?
No.
Just curious.
Have you met? Has the committee met?
The first meeting is tomorrow afternoon at 2 p.m.
Okay. So we're being presented with articles relative to setting up this EMT service, if you would, or replacing, or whatever time we're doing, without the committee that we set up to study this having yet met. Is that right?
That's correct, and I would probably suggest that you wait to do these until the last possible moment.
Till Thursday.
Yeah. And what these are, we have to present, because we come to town meeting once a year, so we have to present all options, funding all options all at the same time, especially because of the timing. And what we've run into, as you know, is Calix is basically pulling out of Littleton, and putting us up against the wall and saying, if you don't notify us by February 2nd, we're out of here. If you don't pay us 108% more, 265,000 next year, 295,000 next year.
Okay. So Calix
So-
wants for 2018
Mhm.
or 2018 into the beginning of 2019, right?
Yeah.
They want
$236,000.
230, which, and as opposed to how much they're getting right now.
They're at 117. They'll go to 120. They would have gone to 120 for this 2018-19.
Well, what's the 108,000 you just mentioned?
The 108% increase.
Oh, the 108.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay,
percent for the
but
next
2017 is how much we are paying them?
117.
117.
Yeah.
It was scheduled to go to 120 something, but they are opting out of that.
Yeah.
Okay, and their new schedule for us, 2018 is 236.
265.
Correct.
And then to
Wait a minute.
yeah, for 2019 will be 265.
265, okay.
In 2019 will be
No, that's 2019. 2020.
2020 will be 295,000.
Okay,
Unless they break the contract again.
okay,
So
right. But if, in the worst case scenario, so to speak, if we want to re-up with them for one more year,
we can't up for 1
That's
year.
not
We
an
have to-
option.
We have to agree to 3.
okay,
Okay.
but there's an opt-out clause in the 3-year thing for us and for them?
No, just for them, right?
There's an opt-out clause. Either party has to provide notification, but we haven't negotiated terms, so we have to see if we could.
Okay,
still
but under the contract that we are just finishing
Mhm.
with them, there was an opt-out clause for both
For
parties?
both parties, yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it may be reasonable to assume that it's gonna cost us an extra $110,000 for the upcoming year if we decide to continue for another year.
Right, well, that's what, yeah, with them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
And I believe they've made it very clear in our meetings that this would be a 3-year contract, and we may lose, that the 295 is their operating expense here in Littleton, and they're willing to phase it in to help us get to that point. But I believe they will be looking at a 3-year contract with no opt-out
Yeah,
option.
we had a discussion about a 1 year. We also went back to them because they decided they didn't want to offer us any bridge coverage if we couldn't commit to something by February 2nd. I explained that we have a budget cycle, and we need to be able to get from February 2nd through into March, and be able to have funds committed. They refuse to, if we don't meet their demands by February 2nd, then they're pulling out, and we'll be faced with either contracting out to Golden Cross is one. I think they've offered us $20,000 a month for service, and
Okay, which is basically the same as the 236.
yeah, same as 236. And that the difficulty there is there'll be people coming in from outside that won't be necessarily familiar with our geography, which could affect response time. And then the other option was that we were looking at is just in this meantime maybe leasing an ambulance and utilizing the crew we have for the gap coverage until town meeting, based on and then we can transition to whatever the commission or public
That
decides.
lease was like $50,000, was it? Oh, that was to buy an old ambulance.
That's to buy a used one. I'm not sure if we did a lease, I think it has to be a licensed ambulance in order for it to be operating. I don't know what that costs. Chad,
So,
figures.
we have some preliminary figures. What we would need would be a fully equipped ambulance with somebody else's name on it, essentially. And we would develop an MOU to become, in essence, their employees. And that's an important piece of it, because there's a billing component to this. So we can't just go out and put an ambulance in service and send a bill out, because we have to be registered with payers.
How long does that take?
It takes months to register with CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
You start right now.
Well, there's a few complications. I can't license as a transporting service until I have an ambulance, and I can't register with a payer until we're licensed as a transporting
We've been backed
service.
up against the wall on the same thing.
Yes, sir.
And there's so much unknown on it, like how much we are gonna gain from transporting people. I just think we've gotta figure out a way to bite the bullet and do it whatever the best way is. I do not like having just 2 people on for both. I mean, I don't know what that, but I just don't think that.
And you're saying that if we go with another ambulance service like Cross, I believe you said, there's going, because they don't know the geography, it's gonna be a lapse in service. Well, there's gonna be a lapse in
Well,
service.
not a lapse, they just, they might,
response.
response time. Yeah, I mean,
But if
they
we
need
only
to
have-
learn the
If
area.
we only have
obviously.
2 people on
I'm
there,
with you, Ralph.
and they're out fighting a fire, we're still gonna have a serious lapse time trying to get 2 people in off call.
But
I
vice
think
versa.
that having a deeper service is always better. The cost of readiness is what we have to consider and always has to consider here. I mean, we came here asking for additional training last year of $8,000. So to throw 2 more people on a service, I think that's.
Diane, George, a second. Diane, you're hearing this, obviously.
I am, yes.
Anything you'd like to interject at this time, or?
It's just a very big responsibility for us to make this decision without having a lot of information, and especially to be doing it before the commission has even started to meet. And I understand the rush for it, but I also understand that we need some good information. And we aren't, I don't think, the group to make this decision. We're not the commissioner. So I just, I just want to ask the question again. So if we were to enter into a 3-year contract with Calix, it would definitely, the highest number would be $295.
In the third year, that's correct.
In the 3rd year.
Yeah.
And right now that would provide us, worst case scenario, that would provide us with 1 ambulance, correct? They do not provide us with a 2nd ambulance. That would be mutual aid, correct?
That's correct.
Correct.
Okay, and that gives us 24/7 coverage for ambulance, and it gives us 24/7 coverage for the fire station. So I think that we're all trying to do the best thing here, but we just do not have enough information. So that would be the worst case scenario, would be the $295 and the 1 ambulance with mutual aid. So unless we can get an opt-out clause in that, I'm afraid that's the way I would go, recommend to go until we have more information. We just don't have enough right now.
Muffy?
I've just one question, Ted, you just mentioned, you can lease an ambulance for $20,000 a month with one driver or two people?
So the $20,000 figure from Gold Cross, and actually that was their. It will be a little bit more than that because they hadn't factored in some overtime costs because we're asking them to do it on a short basis. So they're not going to be able to hire staff for 3 months and then lay them off. But so that was about $20,000 a month, and they would provide staffing with that ambulance.
So there'd be two people in that ambulance?
Correct.
It wouldn't take one of your firefighters?
Well, there is a caveat, which is that they're coming out of Claremont, and so you know there may be emergency situations where somebody has to go home sick, or you know something like that, where there was some discussion about whether we would fill in for them or not, because you know if somebody gets a phone call and they need to go home immediately, and home is Claremont. Somebody has to get up here, then they're going to get back down.
So there's a time lag.
So there may be times where we're asked for various situations like that, if we were to move forward with Golden Cross, to fill in staffing for them.
Now, the next question is this. I understand what Diane's saying, but that's 3 years and you maybe can't have an opt-out clause. That's $1 million commitment, you know,
Yeah.
no matter what, give or take. Question, is there another company around, like this one, that would commit for 1 year, even if it's $250,000 or whatever it is, while all of your work gets done for this logical project that you're talking about? Is there a company that would give us a 1 year for sure with an option to renew?
So we do, what we have right now for the commission to consider is we have 3 RFPs, and in addition to Calix, but I'm not sure if Calix is going to be even pulling off the table here, based on the last communication I had.
But are any of those 1 year?
I don't know.
So Golden Cross is willing to stay for a period of time on a month-to-month basis, somewhere around that $20,000-ish a month expense.
Kim, how long would it take to get it set up for the billing for the transportation?
You know, it can vary a little bit, but you know, I think a safe estimate is 4 months.
Okay, and you estimated that we would have $200,000 in billing. Is that would that be for 8 months?
So there was if you look at what Calix is claiming to have made in their 12-month calendar period, and what the estimates are on the RFPs that we received, what they expect to make, you know, it varies from 280 to 150,000. So somewhere in there is a reasonable amount of revenue to expect.
I know this is a town commission, and probably not. I would do a crapshoot and put 2 more people in and hope the billing took care of the 2 people. I know it's wild, but
Yeah,
something's got to be done.
But George, we haven't even had an explanation, okay? Where are the people gonna come from who are gonna do these transports?
If the fire department were to do EMS,
They want to use that.
the on-shift personnel that we have now.
To use 911 transports to the hospital.
Okay, yeah,
Are you
the
talking?
emergency calls.
Transfer.
Yeah.
Okay, transfers, where are the people gonna come to
Who's
do
gonna
the
do the
transfer?
transfer cases from here to Dartmouth?
The
And that's-
hospital will.
So right now we don't have what I'd call an option on that. Calix, Lancaster, and a third service who I understand is recently backed out of providing transfers. So hospital to hospital movement of patients. Obviously, you know, with equipment and staff right here in Littleton, we'd like to work with Littleton Regional Hospital to see if we could do that. So we would have to develop a program to do that. The first step, though, for us is doing 911 and getting that down solid, making sure we're able to collect on those bills, get that whole process down, and then say, let's do transfers, and here's how we fund that.
Okay, but the 911 calls, at least from the conversations that I've had over the years with various emails, that is not where the money is made.
So the estimates that we have received and they were solid figures from Calix, and then estimates from these three, or at least two of the RFPs provided estimates of their expected revenues, were for 911 only.
Yeah.
So it was 280 to 150, 911 revenue only. Looking at,
mean 280,000
Correct.
down to,
in that, one company is estimating they would make $150,000 in patient care revenue,
Yeah.
911 only.
Yeah.
And Calix, I believe, reported that they made 280,000.
This is on 911 call.
This is just on 911.
Just going from Littleton to the hospital.
Correct. This is not on
Ah.
interfacility transfer. So, having taken a 3-month snapshot of Littleton Regional Hospital transfers as just an analytical process, I estimate that if the town of Littleton were to conduct 80% of the transfers out of LRH, and 80% is a number because you can have concurrent. I got 3 people that need to go out now. Well, we only have so much staff, so many ambulance. So 80% is a little bit of a protection factor. I estimate that is between like 280 to $500,000.
But we can't go there right away. You're saying we have to get
Correct.
good at our 911 first, is what
Correct.
basically
Yeah.
you're saying. Okay, if that happened, let's say we all decide you buy an ambulance and you're doing 911, and now Littleton Hospital has to take somebody from Hanover for shoulder surgery. I mean, they're not dying, they're not going in the helicopter or anything like that. Where do they get that person if you can't do it? They have somebody come up from Hanover or another town and get them? How does
So
that go?
currently, up until very recently, they have 3 different services that rotate through on a day per
Okay.
week schedule. One being Calix, one being the town of Lancaster, and the third service I understand has recently backed away from that. So I don't know what the hospital's
Might have
plan
been
is.
Whitefield.
It wasn't Whitefield, so no. It was another party from out of town. And what really struck me about this is that no LRH area service conducts interfacility transfers, and I think that's an exportation of $500,000 worth of revenue out of this area. If you look at Weeks Hospital, AVH in Berlin, UCVH in Colebrook, that's all money that's staying inside of those local communities to fund and support their municipal EMS systems. We don't have any of that money staying inside the Littleton Regional Healthcare catchment area.
and is there a reason that hospitals don't do this themselves?
Yeah. they don't have money on it.
Their
For the
hospitals,
same reason we don't.
No, George, we're talking about,
Like why LRH doesn't do it.
I want to, I mean, if there's such an income potential from it, why aren't the hospitals doing it themselves?
if you look at if you look at the annual report from the hospitals, it's actually really small potatoes for them. And they're not well equipped to do it. We fall under different sections of the Medicare regulations. They're Medicare Part A, we're Medicare Part B. The other thing is that what happens is, if you had to stand up a standalone transfer service, it doesn't make money necessarily. Because I have to hire a transfer EMT and I have to have a transfer ambulance. What you do is you leverage all of your training and personnel and equipment that you have for 911. You need redundancy. And so instead of just having that redundancy sitting in the station kind of gathering rust, we put it to work tomorrow doing a transfer. So you're utilizing kind of both sides of that. You're utilizing your staff that's trained for 911 to go out and accomplish this extra mission. So that's why you don't typically see standalone transfer agencies out of critical access hospitals.
Okay. So let's look down the road a little bit, because it's an expectation that we would get into the transfer business, yes?
Well, I think that's something that, I would like to see the department get into, but I think there needs to be conversations with the select board and the hospital and.
Okay, but if we got into the transfer business,
Yeah.
hospital to hospital, facility to facility, okay, who would be performing that company? Who would be the staff for doing that?
So if you say we as in the town of Littleton, we would develop a system. It wouldn't be the 2 people that are on duty now saying, I'm leaving the station will be uncovered,
No.
and we're going to Dartmouth.
No.
It will be either, utilization of off-duty staff, additional part-time staff, stuff like that. There's a mix of it. Per diem.
Murphy?
Another question, Jen. That would be budget relieving if it all worked the way we're talking about, maybe, okay? But if we bought an ambulance And now we find that our hospital, which is one of how many in that consortium? Four,
Correct.
five.
Yeah.
If they say, oh, well, wait, we're gonna go in the transfer
Four.
business now, because we have four hospitals, makes sense that they should probably do that, who knows, even though you say it's a small amount of
Well, I
their
can't
budget.
predict what they're gonna
Right,
do.
but we don't know that, so now if they're gonna do that, and then all of a sudden we're working towards it, obviously they're gonna use their own before they use us, I would think, if they had their own ambulance to take you from Berlin to Dartmouth, or Berlin to Littleton might be what they're doing, depending on the need. So I worry about us having this sort of little pot of gold at the end of this, once we get set up. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. Have you talked to them about that? I mean, like, just the new,
So we've had some very basic discussions with Dr. Duffy, our medical director and the vice president, about how would we move forward with EMS.
Yeah.
And he's told us all along he's very supportive of us. He would really be excited if we got into transport EMS. But the hospital and I don't. They have to be careful about promising the delivering of services, because there's some safe harbor provisions that may come into play. It's basically complicated lawyer type stuff where without a contract, if they say, if they're making us promises and we're making them promises, it could be considered illegal under some of the. You can actually, write contracts that say here's how the services provision,
right.
and there you can quote the safe harbor type legislation to make sure that you're acknowledging it exists and you're staying away from that, and this in no way constitutes a promise for other services. So it is. I don't want to say it's a delicate conversation to have, but having done this for a while and having my finger in the pulse of the North Country hospitals through the consortium of the four. It would be very, very surprising to me, shocking to me, if they got involved with EMS on the transport level.
And I should do this myself, what is the difference between let's buy an ambulance, putting on 2 more people, and what would be paid CalX right now for next year?
$50,000 a year for the ambulance, right?
Well, we came up with a budget of $140,000.
That's not, what's that include 2 more men?
That includes only $50,000 toward the men at this point, or persons.
Okay, what I'm saying is, what does the ambulance cost us, what other expenses we have, and 2 men full-time, all 24 hours a day,
Yeah.
cost us versus going to CalX.
Yeah, huge.
10 grand less.
No, I mean, you're talking.
So you're talking about 4 people per shift.
You're talking 4,
No.
you're doubling, virtually doubling your wage package.
2 more.
So you're
No,
talking about.
you're
I'm trying
not
to
just
figure-
2, it's just not 2 more people. I mean, it's having 4 people there.
We got 4 right now, Steve.
No, we don't. We
Yes,
only
we
have,
do. We
no.
have 2, but
We
with
only,
CalX, they
George,
have 2.
we have 2 now that we're paying, and we have 2 that we're paying
That's what I'm saying.
$117,000 a year. So if we keep that other 2 next year for $236, okay, that's what the difference is. If we double our staff at the fire department, you're talking how many hundreds of thousands of dollars?
Well, I think it'd be worth noting that CalX doesn't staff with all full-time employees. So, we would have to determine to what degree do we have, when we have 4 people on per shift, how many FTEs do we have? How many of them are full-time versus per diem or part-time? So, I mean, you'd have to.
I still want God darn number, pardon me, TV. The difference between what it's gonna cost us if we buy an ambulance and hire 2 more people versus, and I'm including income, you gotta
Sure.
include income from transport. What would be the difference in cost? How much cheaper would it be for us to do that than it would be
You
to
think it's
CalX?
$10,000?
It'd be way more money than going to
No,
Cal.
2 full-time, plus the
Yeah.
ambulance.
Oh.
you're up to
Diane, you
16.
wanna?
If you did 2. if you
Well,
did
I think we don't have a lot of information. We don't even have a kind of a proposed schedule of the staffing. So, as much as I am for probably going down this direction, I'm really hesitant because part of our due diligence is to make our decisions on information. And we're not, at this point, we don't have that information. So that's the reason why as much as people want to kind of jump on this, let's slow down a little bit, dot the i's, cross the t's, and get all the information that we really need to have. And if we have to go with pallets for a while, then do it. And I know that it might be difficult to get an opt-out. If we can't get an opt-out, then it's a whole different ballgame.
How many more times are we gonna have to face this, Diane?
Well, George, I mean, what she's saying is making perfect sense.
Total sense.
I mean, if we added, if instead of having 2 men at the fire station, as we do now, we had 4 men at the fire station, what's the rough math, Karen, in terms of what our wage package is gonna be for the year?
Well, the one person runs you about 90,000 a year, not including overtime, with all benefits.
Right.
So 90 times 2 right there is 180.
No, but
Rudy,
you
hold
But
on.
you have more
gotta
than,
go 3 times, that's the problem. That's
I
what-
understand, I'm just
because
saying,
you've
but,
gotta have a rotation
right,
shift.
I understand.
If we couple, but if we
Yeah.
stay with Calix, they don't do transfers, right?
They do.
They do, but not out of Littleton.
Not out
Not
So if
Littleton
we stay
Fire
with
Station.
Calix, we got 2 people down here in the fire station.
All the
retired
time.
From Calix.
Yeah. I mean, if we,
At that
if we go to 4 people at the fire station on a daily basis, all our employees, our payroll is gonna go up $500,000.
But we
Depends
should
on
be
the
getting at
shift
least
coverage.
$200,000 rebate. Damn
We-
it, it's there, Steve, you gotta look at it, you gotta consider.
No, George, okay, those 4 people are just providing your 9/11 service and your fire coverage as you are now. In addition to that, the people who aren't working on that particular day
Have to be
are the
ready.
ones that we're gonna hire to do the
You're looking at
transfers.
100,000 to 200,000 just for hospital 911 calls. Just for 911 calls, that's not counting transportation,
budget
extra
relating the
transportation to
$200,000
Dartmouth,
in
to
the
Boston,
hospital?
or anybody, it's just 911
Almost
calls.
at 280 last year.
Yeah.
For that.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, please, Heather, jump in.
If you can't go with Plan A, which is obviously to
Yeah.
do all this,
Yeah.
bring it in-house, what's your, I mean, for me, I think the 1 year with an ambulance service allows for that time, but I understand your concern with there's gonna be a learning curve, there's gonna be a gap and initially a gap, but would that be your plan B? I'd like to hear your input. If you can't, this is happening really fast, but I think waiting another 3 years is crazy. I think
I
we
do
could
too.
really do something.
My original plan in all of this was, I'm concerned about the gap. I'm also concerned about the timeline it takes us to acquire licensing, also to become a registered with Medicare, Medicaid. And basically, being that, right now it's the 9th, and this company is gonna be leaving us in a few weeks. And there is no, and we're gonna be, hard stretched to try to get an ambulance, because it's the person out there that's calling for help that I'm concerned about, and having an ambulance at the front door when they need it. So going to a short-term agreement with one of these companies would provide us some gap coverage, give us some breathing room to get all our licensing and everything else on board, right? Get us established and then move us forward. The problem I see with that, obviously, there's always gonna be a cost for whatever we're going to do. Whether we're gonna pay the $20,000 a month for 6 months, or a year, there's a cost associated with
But
that.
it is the
There's-
same as the ambulance.
There's a lot of different ways to skin this cat. I mean, basically, it doesn't mean that we're using, all full-time employees all the time. It doesn't mean that our overtime, our payroll's gonna, skyrocket, numbers that we can't even imagine. To me, we have to look at it from all different perspectives. As the captain was saying, there's a million different moving parts to this.
Yeah.
We have employee pools that are part-time and per diem and on call. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to provide, employees for less cost, and also cover the services that we need. right? What we need to do is we need the opportunity to get that up and running and get that established, so that when we do back that ambulance into the fire station, right, we're ready to go that day. Everything is covered. It's just that this company has put us in a very precarious position. They left us 18 months on a 36-month contract. We were the only town to receive a 90-day termination notice. They demanded a 108% increase in the first year, right? They've been very, well, I'll say, unresponsive when it comes down to if they'll give us that gap coverage. Now we know that they're not gonna provide us with the gap coverage. When they did tell us at one time they would provide us the gap coverage, their cost was a lot higher than these other costs that we're looking at. And again, my difficulty with all of this is at least in-house, within the confines of the station, we have a lot of control. I mean, the fire department isn't going to come to the town and say, well, we're not gonna provide ambulance service unless you pay us more money. That's not gonna happen. We need to take control. And how we do this, and we are very cost conscientious, we realize what the costs are. But when I have to say, George, I understand where you're coming from, but you also have to understand where I'm coming from. A fire truck goes out of the station with only 2 guys on it when there should be 4. At one time, a fire truck went out of station with 1 guy on it for how many years? And what good was that?
I'm not arguing.
So,
What would we have if we went to 3 people?
So basically.
Maybe that's a compromise.
Yeah, it's a compromise. It is. So basically, what we're looking at is we're trying to improve, our service delivery, but we just can't, we don't have the wherewithal to turn around and say, okay, let's put on 4 guys per shift. We certainly can integrate with part-time, we certainly can integrate with on-call, we certainly can integrate with per diem. We could work towards that ultimate goal, but for us to get there overnight, that's not gonna happen.
Okay, I agree, I don't wanna argue.
I understand, and that makes
I
total
think
sense.
that's, Chief,
Diane,
I
go
think
ahead.
that, I'm sorry if I'm
No.
interrupting.
No, go ahead, Diane.
I think that's where I'm coming from too. I want this to really be launched in the most effective way. And I think we have too many questions right now. And I'm not saying no in the long run. I'm just saying I think we're trying to do too much in the short run. And that's where I would prefer to give you the time and the options and figure out everything and try to, whether it's another service or if it's Calyx for another run with them. I want to give you the time to be able to present this in the best form. So
Diane,
it's not that we're
Cal-X put us in this position.
No, we put us in this position.
No, not with them opting out of it.
No, George, we put in this position because we could have stuck with Ross a number of years ago,
Okay,
worked with
Steve.
them, and, we could have not, so we can't blame Calyx on this. We're the ones that
Only
did
they
it to
broke the
ourselves.
contract.
Steve,
Guys,
as a selectman at that point in time, the
Yeah,
decision we made was the correct decision.
That's
That's
right.
right.
I
It was
agree
the
with
correct
you.
decision
I
for
agree.
a lot of reasons.
but Steve,
I know, Milt, I was involved at that
Steve,
time, and
water is over.
I know, but I'm just saying, we can't be blaming Calyx.
I got
They're
one
a
more
company.
Well, I can blame
that-
Cal-X, they canceled the damn contract.
George, we wrote the contract, and
They
we
jumped
gave
in the
them,
middle of
we
it.
gave them the option in the contract to opt out. So, I mean, that's not their fault.
Okay, but
Yes.
And they
Mr.
went back
Chairman,
Steve?
Ralph.
A couple questions, go ahead.
Sorry, my fears.
that's okay, go ahead, Ralph.
The question I have is, tomorrow night, this commission's meeting.
Tomorrow at 2 p.m.
Okay, tomorrow. I don't expect we're gonna have answers out of them for Thursday night.
We might.
So I expect this commission's probably gonna meet 3, 4, 5 times before they have.
Oh,
any
more than
real
that, Ralph, we meet for 6
So we're
months.
not gonna have any answers before the election. We need to come up with a temporary result for 1 year and give them time to work on this, so a year from now, they can put this in place. So for this budget this year, we need a temporary amount, $20,000 a month from Cross, sounds like a pretty good compromise for a 1-year contract when they're willing, if they're willing to do a year for us. So,
I know you don't like them because they're
temporary.
No, I do like
Yeah.
the gentleman that runs the organization has been very helpful.
I know you
So,
like them,
yeah,
I'm saying
it's
you
a matter
worry
of
about that,
location.
is what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Okay, Carolyn? Any,
Well, that's what I was gonna say, what Ralph said. It sounds as though we're agreed that we need gap coverage in order to have time.
right, and not
To come
3
out.
months gap, we're talking 12 months gap.
Oh, I think a year. I
Yeah.
agree with a
Okay.
year, absolutely. Because we need time to get this thing really thought through and find out all the costs.
And
involved.
run the whole numbers on the whole part of it. Jimmy?
Absolutely.
Yeah, same thing. I think I'm unclear on the operating costs, sort of how it's gonna run, how many people. I think that's come up so many times. And so I think I would defer to the commission that's gonna be working on this, and I would be happy to just watch, see what's going on.
Would you like to join the commission?
No, I'd probably just like to watch.
Ralph?
Well, I just said, we need a 1 year.
Yeah, okay, I'm just saying,
Let's cover the
reaffirm.
budget for this year, and then next year, put this in the warrant article for next year, when you got it all put together and ready to move. So that as soon as it's voted on, you move.
Gather?
Yeah, I think we're here to make decisions on what's fiscally makes sense, but not what operationally is the best way to go about. And I don't feel like that's our call, so I just think that we should defer to the commission.
I think if we're gonna do that, we still, because all of a sudden it's gonna be next January, we're gonna be doing the same thing, looking for an ambulance. I think we have a spot on the warrant where we're establishing a fund. But maybe that fund should have some seed money in it. Or, she's giving me a look. Because if you're gonna do this, whether you do it tomorrow morning or next year, you talked about having a used ambulance for a short while and all that. I just think it's smart not to go tomorrow morning and say we're doing this because we don't have it in place. But I also don't think we should just leave it unfunded so that there's no way we can jump right into it. Do you see what I'm saying? Having some sort of funding in place, be it $50,000, because you said it's $50,000 a year to lease an ambulance for 5 years, correct?
To take out a lease, yes,
Yeah.
50,000.
So, but my point is if we wait till next March to say yes to a lease, it's already too late because the contract would be over, no?
You're looking at more like an 18-month time period.
That's what I'm saying, so
Yeah.
I'm saying maybe, just maybe, this whole discussion brings us to the fact that we can't do it right now, but if it's the wave of the future, if you can find somebody to give you a 1-year contract, I think having 3 years is scary.
Well, sorry.
Do you see my point?
But yeah, you saying, or chief, that 18 months, if we did an extension for 18 months, that would fit better in with us making the decision and then being able to implement it at the right time?
You have to look at, we need to be a registered licensed agency in order to move forward to apply for the what do you call it, the payer,
Yeah.
licensing. So basically.
Pay as you go.
Yeah, so basically.
To be able to build it.
Yeah.
But you have to have an
Yeah,
ambulance to
so
apply.
basically, we need to have an ambulance in order to acquire a license. And then, once we acquire that license, then the clock starts as to the timeline in us receiving those,
You need-
licenses from Medicare, Medicaid.
You need to physically have an ambulance?
So right now, we're a
It's not enough that-
non-transporting service, and so you can't, it's a fraud prevention thing. They don't like it when I register to receive payables for, as an ambulance service, when I don't own an ambulance, they won't allow that. The state has to issue a transport license. In order to have a transport license, you have to have an ambulance.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
that makes
They
sense.
license the ambulance as well,
I have a
and then
big
you use
Honda,
that
can I use
transport
it?
license to go to Medicare, Medicaid, and say this is.
Even when it's part of an overall plan to get into the business?
It's a fraud protection measure
How
that way.
long does that take, Cam?
Well, thank you. Well,
Cameras.
you know, there's a lot of moving parts to it, so, you know, as soon as you can get an ambulance in, equipped, licensed, the state is willing to work with us on the licensing piece within a week. But the federal payer is a little more complicated to get
Would it
reimbursement
make
from.
sense for us right now to do the 12-month interim thing and go on and budget for the ambulance as of November 1st or October
So,
1st.
so I think that'd be, I would say you have to look at it one of two ways. Either you're looking at it as 6 or 8 month, like a 6 to 8 month interim period, or you're looking at probably 18 months or longer.
No, that's
Because-
I'm trying to overcome that, that's what I'm saying.
So if you wait till the next legislative body session, not this town meeting, but the next one for your approvals, can I buy an ambulance before 2019 town meeting? So, that pushes it out
Yeah.
further to 18 months. So if the commission were to recommend this, I would say, I would try to do it in a 6 to 8 month time period.
My recommendation would do these side by side. In other words, we acquire ambulance, we get our license, we start the process of putting the program together. We get either 6 months coverage with a contractor with, if you want, a 6 month extension. That provides us an ambulance, that provides us licensing. Although we may not be able to provide billing, that also provides us the ability to be the second ambulance out of the station for back-to-back calls. That fills the gap nicely. That we also would have now the ability to apply for licensing and for our payer privileges. So that, in essence, would be workable. At least it shortens the timeline by quite a bit.
The only problem with that is,
Yeah, well, I'll come right to you, Don, 1 second. Yes, Ralph?
the only problem with that is now we've got $240,000 in the budget
Right,
and this
right,
Correct.
that we're presenting to the taxpayers. So we're double funding the taxpayers.
that's,
No, okay, Diane?
Yeah, so
Go ahead.
either side, either end.
Diane, go
Karen,
ahead.
yeah, Karen
George.
and Andrew and the chief. And so could this purchase of an ambulance, because I totally was going to recommend that we discuss that, and I'm for it, so to speak. But I'm wondering if it can be contingent on the outcome of the commission, and if the commission recommends it, if the selectmen recommends it, blah blah blah. But we have the money, we have the approval from the voters this year, contingent on all of those things. Is there any way that we can word the warrant article in such a way?
Well, first I wanted to read the warrant article just to set up the funds. Just to set up the funds, the warrant article is an EMS revolving revenue fund for EMS services. Shall we adopt the provisions of RSA 32:95-H to restrict 100% of the revenues from the EMS ambulance service to expenditures for the purpose of EMS ambulance services? Such revenues and expenditures shall be accounted for in a special revenue fund known to be as the EMS revolving revenue fund, separate from the general fund. Any surplus in said fund shall not be deemed part of the general fund accumulated surplus, and shall be used or expended only after approval of the selectmen for a specific purpose related to the purpose of the fund or the source of revenue. And at this time, I have a question mark whether it needs a majority vote. I need to confirm that with DRA. This is
Majority vote
of the selectmen,
of the town.
of the town.
This is the
Okay.
warrant article that would go on the
Okay.
ballot.
Versus the,
That way, the selectmen could, if there's a buildup of revenue in that account after expenditures, can use those funds to add more EMS people if they needed to, or to buy a second ambulance if they had to, or to pay off the ambulance if this ambulance is approved and we have the extra money to do that. The warrant article for the ambulance here is a lease purchase, which we've been doing for the larger vehicles. It's set up so we borrow $250,000 on a loan lease purchase. We've been getting the rate for them anywhere from 2 to 3% right now. we estimated it will be 50,000 first payment, because we always make the first payment in the first year. And that can come from taxes instead of coming from this fund. So we could actually buy the ambulance
From the
and
fund.
have the taxpayers paying for the ambulance and the setup of the ambulance. That's all included in that amount of money.
You say tax rate.
Well, what I was trying to get at was
It wouldn't come
that
from
we
the-
still don't know what the commission's gonna recommend. And the voters need to have an opt-out here too. If the commission decides that this isn't the way to go, we can't say that they're going to find that we need to go in this direction. How would we stop the purchase of an ambulance with the way it's set up now?
If the warrant article is approved by the taxpayers and
Right,
it's decided that we're not gonna go for this, we wouldn't
Correct.
purchase it.
Right, yeah.
You're not legally
We
obliged
wouldn't be
even though?
obliged to do it, right?
We would be obliged?
not.
We would
Would
not be
not.
obliged.
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, I think we probably have some answering to do.
Steve,
Yes.
the question I have is this, you have a group meeting tomorrow, we're coming back here Thursday. It's 5 o'clock, there's a bunch more stuff here.
Yeah.
We sort of know what you're thinking. I would say have them come back with what this commission has said Thursday, and we deal with it first.
But the commission, they're just gonna be getting their feet wet tomorrow.
Well, I know, but maybe we'll have some time to
Yeah.
think about
I mean,
it.
my sense, and I'm not looking to misstate here, but based on what I've heard from people, and truly what's in my feeling
Yeah.
too, is that whatever it cost us, you know, whether it costs us an extra $100,000 or $150,000 for the next year or year and a half, that would be money well spent to get it right.
It would be. The other thing I'd want to know realistically is, I'm confused. You're saying it's 4 people, you're saying it's 2. I understand there are shifts, don't get me wrong. So we really have to look at that payroll piece. And I know there's some possibility of budget relieving to pay for the ambulance, pay for the payroll, whatever it is. But I still think that we've given a whole bunch of information. Maybe they'll come up with a little tiny bit more clarity, who knows? Who knows? You know, and I think we're just beating it now. I mean, I really hate to say that, but I think we're just, the fact that you read this really clears things up a good bit, and it would give us 2 more days to think about it. We can all call Diane down there, and do you have heat now and electricity? She didn't have any before. But they've given us the pitch with real logic. Obviously, in the end, we should own our own ambulance if nobody wants to come up with our ambulance.
Would the commission be on where they're watching TV and could get some feeling of how we feel?
They might know it, so.
I can relate, I
Yeah.
can attempt to relate how you feel and
Yeah.
do that in good faith.
Okay.
Now, the other question, one final question, is $20,000 a month people from Claremont. You feel pretty good about them as people, even though there is a problem once in a while, but you liked working with them.
They have a good reputation, yes.
Okay.
But it's still an hour away.
Well,
No, they're gonna put an ambulance up here.
Oh, they're-
Correct.
Yeah, it's just if somebody's sick, they're gonna have to ferry somebody back.
Or, you know, somebody doesn't show up for work, or,
Okay, okay.
you know,
Yeah, so we did that for a year, it's about 240,000.
But plus, you know, we're gonna make Karen and
Which is in the
EMT,
budget
and she's
right
gonna
now.
drive the ambulance. With her slide rule in the other hand.
So, yeah, basically what we presented is we have in the budget a scenario, we have here a scenario, we're trying to cover all bases, so we're ready for whatever commission, board,
Yeah.
town decides.
Yeah.
And I think the
So-
commission's gonna go into the operations and all this sort of thing, and
Yeah.
I agree, we kind of,
Yeah, Diane, go ahead.
The other question would be if we are going to perhaps delay this process for another, year or partial year. What about the part-time firemen and the full-time firemen? How does that enter into this discussion? So maybe that's something, I don't know if they want to clear up a little bit about that tonight, or if we carry on the conversation for Thursday.
And part of your question was, based on the last meeting, was how did we go from having call company coverage on Sunday to hiring an additional full-time fireman, correct?
Correct.
so, yeah, the select board reviewed information, at a meeting and, made the decision to move forward with, hiring a full-time firefighter and putting that into the budget. immediately based on need.
And the selectmen can do that without going to the taxpayers?
Correct.
They can add a position
To the
of
budget.
fire police
So
Yes.
without going to the
Yes.
taxpayers?
No,
And
they
that's what
can't,
hap- that's what
Ralph,
happened
because
with-
it's a proposed budget, and the voters have to approve the proposed budget.
it's in the default budget and the
It's
proposal.
Yeah,
in the
but I
default.
guess that,
How is it in the default budget?
Because it was hired before the end of the year, and the selectmen had chose to add that position. The selectmen have a right to make changes to the default budget.
okay, but I guess that's, my question is like this, we hired a guy this year, Miller, right? What was his name?
That's the
Here,
default.
Chad Miller.
Chad.
Chad Miller.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Chad.
Without taxpayers' approval.
Well,
There was no place the taxpayers
I
approved
don't think
that.
that was me.
yeah.
He,
There was just, the selectmen just said, let's hire him and we
the
hired him.
selectmen met with the fire department and the fire chief and the town manager, and a decision was made to hire a full-time firefighter
For Sundays.
Okay, and the
for
selectmen,
Sundays.
and the
And,
selectmen have the
and
right
overtime
to
shift
hire
Yes.
coverage, yeah.
without going through the
And when
taxpayers.
did that
Correct.
happen?
Okay,
How
I
long
just
ago
wanted to
did that
verify
happen?
So I
That's
made,
not what you said last meeting. Last meeting you
No.
said the taxpayers have to approve all hiring.
No,
No.
last
They
meeting,
don't.
In
no.
fact,
No.
in
I
fact, the town
remember it.
manager has the authority to hire and fire exclusively, in fact, to dissolve or create any department.
Even if it's
By
not in the
law.
budget.
You have to operate within the budget.
Huh?
So you have to, the manager has to operate within the budget, so budgets can be, we're a bottom line budget, so we could
So
overextend
you
in one area.
pull, you pull it from someplace else and put it in.
That's right, yeah, by state law, that's the way that works, so.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
Ra-
positions
That's all I
themselves
need
don't have to
now,
go to town
If
meeting.
you can
to
juggle.
maybe provide a little bit more clarity on that. To me, it seemed like most likely, and I believe to the board and to the chief and the town manager, that staying with Calix wasn't a viable option. So because of the
They're
3
staying with Calix.
staying with Calix in their new contract that ends at almost $300,000 was probably not gonna be a viable option.
Was not a viable.
And let me tell you why, because we negotiated for a period of time with them, and one of the key sticking factors for me was, okay, so the town of Littleton agrees to your large increase, that puts us at $50 per capita. St. J is gonna tap out if they approve all of their increases at $20 per capita. So we're at $30 more per capita than their other coverage areas. And so when I really pushed them to say, if we sign this, we need an agreement, because you've issued us a termination letter, we need an agreement from you that you will terminate with other communities that don't meet these demands. If these demands are legitimate, they are across all communities, because you serve all communities. They refused to provide us that and went further to state that they exist solely for the benefit of the Vermont towns. So that really made it solid in my mind that staying with them wasn't an option. We had,
I agree with that. I
We
don't
would-
think Calix is an option.
so we had serious concerns about how Sundays work because Calix was well versed in our community. Transitioning to another provider meant that Sundays was a real problem for the way we were currently operating. So it was kind of an easy jump to say, we really need to fix Sundays. It puts us in a position so that if we end up having to do it, with the 2 people on shift, we have 2 people there to do it. Or if we need to be there to make sure that they know how this community works.
And
And,
I understand, that's good.
So-
But I just wanna make sure it was something that we followed the legitimate, the
Absolutely,
law.
yeah.
Because I always thought that to hire a new firefighter, a new.
Not
police
hire,
officer-
but create a new position, Rob, is what you're saying.
So,
Not hire.
really-
Okay, to create
A
a new position.
an
right.
additional
That
position.
we
or
have to
whatever.
go to the taxpayer.
No, it doesn't,
No,
but
you
it
don't.
does for the funding of it. So you could, a position can be created, eliminated, transferred, anything outside of town meeting.
But
We
within
only-
the budget.
Within the budget. The authority of town meeting is to raise the funds to support that.
But
So-
Rob, having said
I
that,
got you.
we have, and we are currently obviously presenting warrant articles. Chief of Police is presenting a warrant
Right.
article to
If he
add.
agrees to it.
So I mean, I believe that actually could be done without a warrant article.
Right.
The reason it's being done with the warrant article is to try to get community support for it. And they say, well, the community has, viewed the facts and has agreed to fund this position. Not to say it couldn't be done without that, but sometimes when you ask and are open about it and get
I
support
agree,
for
I
it,
agree.
you have a better chance of having it stick.
I agree.
I think that's
But I wasn't aware that we could hire and fire, hire, not
No,
fire,
create.
hire,
Yeah.
Yeah, you know,
You
create,
without the
eliminate.
taxpayer's approval.
Yep, yeah, so you can create, eliminate, transfer, dissolve any department or create a new department.
You can take money
Yeah.
from supplies and put it.
As long as it sticks within the budget.
That's correct.
Dollar line
So,
of
so
the
if he
budget.
came after 8 new people and the selectmen said it's fine, it would never fit in the budget.
Not unless we,
Cut the rec department.
Turn out
that's right.
Turn out all the lights
But
and
Rob,
have
I
no
could see
heat.
how it would look like that, because that's
Right.
the way we have generally done it in the past. We have presented it
To the taxpayer.
to the taxpayer and to try to get the support of it. Diane, not to cut you off, but anything additional to?
Well, I mean, that's interesting right there. So that's going to be in the budget. So did I hear correctly that it was kind of created and already transferred in this year's budget, or is that just for the proposed budget?
no, that's in the default and proposed, yeah,
In the default and proposed, Diane.
It's already happening.
that's right.
The
already-
firefighter is there.
So then it goes back
yeah.
to Andrew,
Yes.
just to
Yes.
understand, you know, we have this thing coming up, and you don't have to answer all this tonight, but this is a question. So we have this thing that may be coming up with the utilities. We don't know where the utilities are going to be. And so we are looking at our warrant articles, and I think the offsetting funds would be coming from our undesignated fund balance. And I've always felt that that fund balance is for emergencies such as if something really catastrophic happens because of the utilities. So we're going through the warrant articles, and some of it is offsetting to the fund balance and some of it isn't. Is there any way that you can just rattle it up and tell us
Yeah.
which ones would be coming through the fund balance?
I believe we have $50,000 would be coming from the fund balance, and that's offsetting
The
Yeah.
ambulance.
the ambulance. And the rest of the offsetting funds that you see on the sheet would be coming from revenues generated and put into a revolving loan fund from EMS. And also a reduction in the proposed budget from what was budgeted under EMS. So it's a combination there.
Okay, so anyway, so here we
And,
are.
just
Yes.
one other quick clarification, the new firefighter position is actually not a completely new position. We took, I believe, a part-time, and we did what's called like a change of status, created a part-time person into a full-time person. So it's not necessarily, it's like a half new position, I guess I would say. But
We reduced some areas of the fire department budget under part-time firefighter and also under part-time firefighter overtime, when that position was added to the default and to the proposed.
All right, so, anyway, I mean, to summarize the sentiment, we haven't taken a vote, but to summarize the sentiment would be that probably we need a 1 year to an 18-month extension on the status quo to give time for this plan to be fully developed and vetted and costed out. And that's my sense of what I'm hearing.
And set up.
Right, yes, that's right.
And set up.
Yeah, and Chad, truthfully, you know, and I know, I mean, obviously human nature in all of us, I mean, some of it, you know, the proof will be in the pudding when we get going, but I would definitely try to do a pro forma on a full-fledged transport and transfer system in terms of where those people are gonna come from and how they're gonna get paid, and, you know, how it's gonna affect vacation time, you know, I mean, somebody who's working on a transfer, you know, and they're a full-time employee of ours, does that transfer money or hours get computed into their vacation time that they earn for the year and overtime and I mean, there's, you know, it's a big deal. And, I mean, I think we really need to extrapolate those numbers and make sure we have a real good feeling for how that's actually gonna work. I mean,
Huge job for you.
it is, oh yeah, it is huge, big piece of paper. Okay, but anyway, so I don't know, do we want to take a vote tonight? Anybody want to make a motion? Rudy, one second.
If we don't vote, it'll go as a no, right?
Well, no, unless,
vote
unless we
5:30.
take, unless we take a vote on
Thursday?
Thursday.
Okay.
You have until, so we have to print the ballot for deliberative sessions, and deliberative sessions on the 2nd. And, right, so.
We print a sample
Yeah.
of what the warrant articles are. And they're discussed at the public hearing, they're discussed at the deliberative session. There's been times that we've taken things to the public hearing and ended up dropping them off based on the
Feedback from that.
feedback from that hearing. So this could be
There's a little
something in
time.
this
A
way.
little time, yeah.
And there's a possibility that the budget committee might want to wait till after the public hearing to see what the public feels about this.
Okay. Rudy?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, before you get into the vote and stuff like that, I would just like to ask a question, because what we talk about right now, it's money, taxpayer money. And I personally, think that the taxpayer, they should be quote unquote represented by somebody. I want to ask the town manager, how many EMS certified people do they have in the police department?
I believe we have one, is that correct?
The police
In the police
department.
department? A paramedic,
No,
or
we don't have
former?
anybody.
Former,
I think Sergeant Ball was formerly an
Okay.
EMT.
yeah.
None, we don't do medical calls.
No, he was asking, he was just asking if you had any certified.
The
You don't have no certified. Well, then I think the town, to compensate with the fire department, maybe they should change the job description, because, it's almost all over United States of America. The police department, they have a list of 1, 2, 3 guys with EMS certification. If you guys don't believe it, go on the internet and you'll find out.
I'm not familiar with that information.
Okay,
I'll check.
just to say, if you don't have any, to compensate with the chief, right, with the fire chief, that they gotta have 2 people, and we don't have nobody else to take care of an emergency.
Can I comment on that? All officers have basic first aid. We're now all AED trained, as well as Narcan. That's just basic information. We do respond to different calls depending on the type of call, how it comes in. Alpha calls we generally don't go to, but the higher need calls, like the Delta calls, the Echo calls, will go and assist fire and EMS, because there's generally the need for that. But to be honest with you, I'm looking at our calls for service that the dispatch supervisor just sent me. We get thousands of calls for service a year. Our primary concern is not EMS. That's the fire and EMS component of the town.
Because you never have a lawsuit yet. Because you guys never have a lawsuit yet.
I hope not.
Yeah, it's nothing to do with law.
Nothing to do with the lawsuit?
No.
Okay, well, folks, with that, Rudy, is that okay?
Well, I just want to know that the police department has got to know EMS personnel. That's what I would like to know.
Yeah.
They say no. The chief said no.
Correct.
That's it.
Can you get us a report?
Okay, all right, obviously, we've spent an hour and a half, and obviously, it's a good discussion, and I think, it's a lot of, it needs the discussion, and this won't be the end of it.
That's right, great input.
But I think that, and because obviously, I would certainly hope that the people that you've assembled on this commission would be asking a lot of the same questions,
Yeah.
and I.
We'll be going through probably a number of scenarios dealing with scheduling and.
Yeah, okay. Is that okay, you guys? Nothing else to say tonight? I mean, hopefully you're taking all this and,
We're here to answer your questions.
well, whatever, and,
Like I said, there is a lot of moving parts, and it may be worthwhile to consider, like, the warrant article establishing a revolving fund, because ultimately, if we don't do EMS, there's no revenue, so there's no harm, there's no foul. But it gives you the opportunity to, that if we ended up doing it,
having it in place.
it has it in place, and that would be a big step, because if we were to do it, we would want to try to do it in a tax neutral way, so utilizing the revenues that come in to meet payroll and that
At
type of
least
stuff.
the warrant article that establishes the fund,
Right.
because
Yeah.
if we get a chance to get a grant,
We can
to
put
be
it
able
right in
to
there.
put you know, something into it.
So it doesn't have any tax impact, and it gives us a lot of flexibility moving forward.
So that would be like number 14, is what you're saying, that we would approve that no matter what, there's no tax implication.
Correct.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Approve that.
We could approve
We can
that.
say yes to that tonight.
Yeah, let's say yes, to
Move
that, so
on.
we can at least adopt something.
Yeah, let's just go with what you say
I
yes
make a
to.
motion, I'm just
Good
kidding.
idea.
I think-
But yeah,
Alright,
that
good,
could
okay.
solve, that would be a big stumbling block in that 18-month time period
That'd be a big
for me
step,
about
and
how
it
we
is
would do that.
tax, no
Okay,
tax.
one thing I would ask, so we're gonna be meeting Thursday afternoon, again, at 4 o'clock. I would ask that everybody please think about this.
Even if I can't.
Yeah, it's all right, you'll be right next to Diane.
I can set up my
Yeah.
And Heather might be there next to you too, there are
Amazing.
3 phones lined up
Oh,
here.
okay, yeah. I'll
Okay,
bring my cell phone.
but in any case, if everybody could please give some good thought to everything that we discussed, because most likely Thursday, pretty good chance I would entertain a motion from somebody to kind of summarize all this and put it in a formal, presentation or whatever for the committee to vote on. Okay?
That sounds good.
Okay?
Sounds good.
Could we at least vote on 16 and 14 tonight?
I
Could we
would think
vote
we-
on establishing that fund tonight?
Yeah, why
So
not?
that the selectmen know that we're okay with establishing a fund?
Number 14, at least the firemen will go away with us having voted for something for them.
Because we're gonna have to establish a fund no matter
Well,
what.
Jimmy,
I'd like to wait and hear what the commission has to say, because, I mean, we don't know what the findings are gonna be. You know, the operational costs are still,
Okay.
there's still a little bit of questions next time.
okay, well, why don't we think about that, and we'll try to address all that on Thursday, okay? Everybody could, if you could, all of them, so 13 through 16.
Well, 16's totally different.
Well, yes, but they're all fire department. If we could, let's everybody think about 13 through 16, and we'll try to address those on Thursday,
Oh, 13,
okay?
And one more thing.
Yes,
Not for the town side, but we have not heard anything from the school. And we have not been
Nothing.
presented with a full budget from the school. Have you been updated at all, Steve?
Okay. I talked to Steve Niles as recently as today. He sent me a summary of projected revenues, which I have, which I don't totally understand. I'm gonna meet with him and hopefully Tom tomorrow morning at 8:30 to have them run me through it so I can have a feeling for what their bottom line is. And I was hoping that I'd at least be able to share those figures on Thursday. Another thing to do during a very busy meeting. But yes, Diane, we're trying to pull that together, but have not got it yet.
But they're presenting that to the town tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night, yes.
They're already presenting their budget.
Well, I think we have up until, maybe I'm wrong, up until almost to the deliberative session to kind of go through all of this. My concern is that as well-intended as you would be in trying to present their information to us, we still had a warrant article last year, wasn't it, to place our vote on the ballot, their ballot. And it's very difficult for us to have that vote without having a presentation. So let's just think about that and how we want to move forward on this. Maybe we can discuss that Thursday night.
Okay. As far as having us having another formal budget committee meeting with the school and have them, which obviously could happen after tomorrow night when they have their hearing, that they could actually present to us what they feel to be their final product for a vote by us.
That's right, because we do have a vote, right, on the ballot, and I guess I would ask the other budget committee members. It's very difficult to vote on something if you haven't heard a full presentation. So we'll think about how we want to handle that and discuss that maybe Thursday night.
Well, if we don't vote on it, just go no, the budget committee then recommends it.
Yeah, that could happen, but just in all fairness, to let them know, that's how they should know. This is the first year that our vote will appear on their ballot, and I think that, I don't know if they've taken it into consideration that that's what would happen.
That's right. Okay, Diane, well, I will
We
try
got
to,
30 minutes then.
Yeah, and just quickly, the last possible day you could vote and get your vote recorded on the ballot before, deliberative session would be, on the 29th. It would have to be at the town office by 4 p.m.
Of January.
of January. So there's a little bit of time for, different issues.
Diane, did you hear that? Andrew's
Yes,
saying
yes.
that we could take a vote and have it recorded as late as January 29th.
That's
And
close.
that should be what, like with petition warrant articles, that was kind of what I was trying to get at earlier with petition warrant articles, so we can still hear information if we so choose to.
Okay.
Do we have a feeling of ones that we might be more comfortable with running through quickly to get
Now,
votes
you
on?
mean?
Yeah.
Well, that's the
Yeah.
next question. So
Okay.
we're
So
done.
I think
Thank
we
you
should
very
also,
much,
I
Russ. Yeah.
think we should cover the police department in the town, because they've been here for these meetings.
Last
Yeah.
4 weeks.
And the transfer
Yeah,
station.
we need to listen to
I agree
them.
with you, Ralph.
Public Works, yeah.
Public Works,
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
get
Let's
theirs
do those.
covered.
You want to start with number 5, because I think that's where that all begins.
Yep, let's start on the
Is that
file.
be okay, Mr. Chairman?
Oh, that's fine. Whatever.
No, I think we should start with the ones that have their own funds. No, serious, like number 10 and number 11.
Well, if that's okay, well, we can start with whichever one you think be most.
Well, let's go to quick ones so we can get those done.
Okay, so Diane, what we're gonna do, we have 20 minutes left, actually more like 15, because we need to be out here at 10 to 6 for a 6 o'clock meeting that's coming up. But the suggestion is that we at least try to knock off some of the simpler ones, if you would.
Well, let's,
that,
we're talking about it, do it.
Let's do it.
That's fine, that's fine.
Okay, so which would be the first one we would like to address?
Better make a motion.
Start with number 10, the transfer
Let's
station.
do the police department. He's been here for 4 meetings and hasn't been able to get up in front.
I make a motion, that we cover number 10 and 11.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay, so
Okay.
you want a quick explanation of 10 and 11?
Yep, Brian Patno could describe it a little more. This is money coming out of his fund. You want to talk about your transfer station,
Very quick.
repair, replacement equipment? No.
Brian, if you would come over here quickly, but yes.
Poor Brian's been here for 3 weeks. Do you go home and help, or you just stay in the building?
I sleep at the transfer station.
You just sleep
He's
upstairs?
he's recycling while he's here.
That's right.
Okay, so number 10, transfer station repair replacement equipment buildings.
Yes. Pretty much it's, $27,000. All of it is coming from our fund this year. Pretty much, it's typically, it's usually an all-in-one type thing, whatever we can use it on. For this year, the big issues is we need a new open-top container, as we got one last year. The other one, which we were using, is out of commission, so we're down to one again. The other thing, spending for that would be new skid steer tires, which we get every couple of years. And then after that, we need 2 new doors. Don't have pictures with me, but like in the office door, you can see right through to the outside.
Some concrete work, I think.
A little bit of concrete work. Handicap ramp is starting to lean. Primex said we should probably get that repaired. Small stuff like that.
These are coming, the money will come from
Okay.
Uh,
the fund.
Okay,
Yeah.
so on 10, do I have a motion to support 10? Which
I'll
would be
make-
$27,000, all of which will be coming out of existing funds.
I'll make a motion for number 10.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made by Jimmy, seconded by George. Ralph, you get the next second. Okay. All those in favor of supporting Article 10, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? So is that, that's a unanimous?
How many others is there voting?
4,
Everybody voted.
that's 6.
I know, but how
6, 0.
Tammy's gone.
Chairman votes.
Carolyn is gone, yes. Okay, number 11, trash compactor. That's partially funded out of existing funds, but part of it's gonna have to come from tax dollars, is that right? Because I know the fund has been depleted.
Yes.
We use it to actually offset some wage components, I believe, in the last few
Yep.
years, right? So it's $10,000 on the taxes.
Yes.
Which is roughly .014 per thousand.
Is this a new trash compactor?
Yes, it
And
is.
an additional one, or instead of the one?
Instead of the one, we're replacing it.
Okay.
And isn't the one you've got 30 years old?
Yeah, it's the original one from when the transfer station was built in '92.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Before you were born.
Not that young, come on.
Just about.
Close, Diane, close.
Yeah, close.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is leaking. We're babying it, hopefully this will pass. If we have to repair it, it's probably gonna cost about $5,000 or $6,000. So it's money well spent for a thing.
Okay,
that-
I'll make a motion.
There you go.
I'll make a motion to go ahead and vote on that one.
Okay,
Number 11?
seconded by George. Is that all right, George?
Sure.
Okay, all those in favor of supporting Article 11, please say aye.
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 Okay, so that's approved 6-0 also. Okay.
All right.
That was easy.
Okay, now,
Okay.
Thank you.
you made 4 meetings for that, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, Brian.
We appreciate your perseverance. Okay, which other ones do we see as
I'll make a
being?
motion on number 5.
Number 5.
There we go.
Okay, a motion to support number 5, Police Department, an addition of a full-time police officer, a 9-month figure of $63,000, so roughly a 1-year figure of 80.
90.
90, sorry, I was being too. Any discussion on that position?
How many full-time police officers do you have now?
So, we currently have 11 full-time, that includes me. But right now, we've been operating 3 short. So.
Because people are ill or they have.
Because people are ill, leave, military deployment, and so it really reduces our operational effectiveness. Now, the reality is that our community had 5 drug overdose deaths in 2017. We suspect 1, maybe 2 more. 4 of those were from fentanyl, heroin, and 1 was from prescription drugs. I understand that I understand completely the concern when it comes to personnel costs. But our department, the police department, our tool is people. That's what we're all about. We have to have people in the field. We need to be able to respond to these different types of investigations, and our goal is to reduce those deaths. We're in the midst, like I explained previously, of a mental health and a drug crisis in the state of New Hampshire and national. But New Hampshire's last in both of those battles, unfortunately. Littleton has always been a place to go. We're a hub community. We're extremely busy. And I need the resources to keep this community safe, to keep the streets safe. The town's always been great in supporting my requests, and that's why I'm requesting this additional officer, so that we can supplement those deficiencies that we have in our patrol staff. When we have a person on military leave, paternity leave, as well as an injury. We've had somebody out since late August, early September. We've had somebody on leave since September, and we have somebody currently deployed on military deployment. So I have to pull my detective back into patrol. That eliminates the effectiveness of our investigations, which are lengthy. These narcotics investigations don't take place over a 30-minute interview with somebody. Sometimes they take 2 or 3 months, but they're very intensive, and we can't be taking our specialized personnel from assignments like the detective and putting them back on patrol.
These full-times you get on leave, are they still getting paid their salary while they're on leave?
The
No
one
details.
person gets a disability.
Insurance.
Another person is on regular pay, and another person, I believe, is military pay is more than what he earns currently. We'd have to offset it if it wasn't.
He's getting the military pay instead of yours.
He will be,
He
yes.
will be. And the person that was injured on the job or not?
No.
Okay, so he's
Not to
on
my knowledge, no.
on disability of some
Yes.
sort. Can you tell us what the police department's warrant total requests were last year? I don't have that right in front of me, and I don't want to go through. Do you know?
What they're-
Totally, how much dollars? the police department on the
The only
warrant.
one they asked for last year was a full-time officer.
So that was about the
We didn't
same.
ask for an officer last year.
No, no, I don't.
We asked for it 2 years ago.
2 years.
Carl was in the budget.
2 years ago,
You asked
the
for
same needs, same analysis, but we felt that fiscally, it just wasn't, we weren't able to pull that off, and the community was great, and they gave us one. But now
Oh,
I'm
that's
coming
what-
back and I'm saying, no, we need that second officer. We need to keep this community safe. We want this to be a destination community.
We read the article in the paper the other day about the Crane Street Apartments,
Yes.
and
Yep.
your officers did a great job. They went in, saw what they need to, and took care of business, so.
That's correct.
So you
So
had
it's
nothing on
happening
the warrant
constantly in
last year?
town.
What's that?
You had nothing on the warrant last year, is that what you're thinking?
Last
It
year,
was a vehicle,
I have the
wasn't it?
list here.
Was there a vehicle?
No,
They had
nothing.
5,000.
Yes, Diane?
They had a 5,000 police equipment last year. It was warrant article number 5.
Yep. They
That's all
also
I.
had their union contract was
That's
up
right.
last year.
Union contract.
Yeah.
The proposed numbers, by the way, that's for the highest step that we can allow, which is step 4, which we would generally pay somebody who's certified. I can tell you right now that we didn't have any certified applicants. And I believe that you also requested at the highest medical insurance rate as well,
Right.
correct?
But not knowing what you're
Not
gonna
knowing
get.
we have to go.
Yeah, you have it up there.
Hire somebody who has a family member.
Okay.
So, I ask you to be supportive of the department like you have been in the past. I can give you numbers, I can tell you how many drug arrests we've had, how many motor vehicle accidents, I can tell you our average
I
time.
make a motion to vote on number 5.
I'll second it.
Then
Motion made by George, seconded by Ralph. Jimmy?
I just have a question with regards to the leave, the application of leave. I'm sure that's in your union contract, but you have the ability to approve or deny that leave.
That's correct.
Based on your manpower at the time?
Absolutely.
Okay, and the second question would be, is there in your union contract benefits for officers that are in good health? For instance, they get maybe bonus leave or some sort of leave when they haven't used all their sick time? As an incentive to stay healthy?
No, Karen can answer part of that, but we do have a physical fitness incentive.
Yeah.
That if
Well,
they-
where I was going with was just health in general in the
Right.
department. That's because if somebody's on leave, they're not able to work. So I just wanted to hear that the department was being
There's-
supportive of.
Yeah, we also have the Slice of Life program.
We have different incentive programs through our health insurance provider
Okay.
that actually
Gym
pays
membership
for
and things like
special
that.
things. If they keep track of their health, they go to their doctors and have an assessment done. There's a whole process. They can get rewarded
Okay.
cash from the
But we
health
don't
insurance.
get, it's not budget relieving to the town.
The one thing that we do offer is a fitness incentive. That's through the collective bargaining unit. That if they pass a fitness test that's done according to a certain specific way, that they get rewarded by a 1% of their base pay, or 2% depending on how high of a level they get to keep them fit.
And
Well,
we pay
so-
that?
We pay that.
Also, it benefits the town because they have to stay in shape in order to stay certified.
Yeah,
They will be decertified if they can't pass a physical fitness test, which means
okay.
I have to give them a certain period of time and then we have to terminate their employment.
Sure. Okay. Because you mentioned that 2 of the reasons why needed this officer was a shortage, one due to leave and one due to sickness. As long as those bases are covered between the application and approval of leave. I mean, military leave,
Right.
you can't really do much about
You
that,
can't do
right?
anything.
But you're not paid
So,
for that.
That's
You got
something,
that.
but
It's not
somebody that
costing
wants to
money.
go to
It-
wife or wherever.
Well,
Costs you
yes, to
money in
your
overtime
question.
pay.
It costs us money because it costs in overtime, it probably does cause some sick and some illnesses because of the amount of extra time the officers have to work to cover those shifts. We
Okay.
do have, by the way, part-timers, but our part-timers have full-time jobs as well.
Elsewhere?
So getting them
Okay.
to cover a midnight shift, for example,
Okay.
is very difficult.
Okay, I thought maybe you could cover that with just regular part-timers, but you can't all the time.
We can't all the time.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead and do the vote.
Okay,
So-
so, Diane?
So going back to overtime, so I don't have it before me. If you've been down these 3 people, so to speak, how much are we over on the overtime then?
We're not.
We're not?
We're not. We've done some creative scheduling to avoid that. But I don't want to get into operational issues publicly. But we have not placed the community at risk, but it's been very difficult. But if we've been in this situation before, it's not a fun one to be in. But our overtime numbers have been pretty solid for the past at least 5 or 6 years. I don't believe we've even addressed any increases in that area, have we? Not in overtime.
Well, I was wondering if you are hiring this person, would the overtime line be adjusted downward in anticipation of covering?
No, I wouldn't. I'm not going to do that. What I believe I told you last time is I can assure you that we won't increase it.
It won't reduce overtime, but it will maybe keep you from having to have extra overtime.
Right. I can't guarantee you that it'll be a reduction in overtime, because I still have to cover training, I still have to cover regular vacation leave time, regular sick time, and other things that come up as far as, remember, our overtime just isn't, it just isn't in shift coverage. It's about, like for example, the incident that occurred on Saturday required me to call in people to deal with a methamphetamine lab. There's a lot of overtime that exists when an officer is dealing with an investigation of sexual assault or some type of a felonious act. They can't just pass that on to a patrol officer that's coming on shift. They need to stay with that investigation. So I wish I could answer you and say, yes, we're going to dramatically reduce overtime by hiring an extra person, but that's just not the case here. This is more a case of public safety, trying to reduce those overdose deaths and getting those numbers down.
One further question, and I'm sorry to belabor it. But when that person comes back from military leave and another person heals up from a sickness, a long-term sickness,
Right.
then we still have one extra. Is there any movement, extra officer, is there any movement in the department where maybe there would be a position opening up when you're fully staffed, or is this?
I don't believe there will be a position opening up if I
Meaning someone retiring,
Right.
or, you know?
Ideally, when we're at full staff, having this additional officer is going to prevent me from having to take a seasoned detective out of his assignment and or her assignment, putting that person back into rotation. It's going to allow me to create a task force that can stay focused on something, provided we don't have any, long-term illnesses or long-term deployments.
Okay. So can we have as I'd like to have a vote on what is now Article 5, full-time patrol officer, 9 months figure at $63,433. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
What
Diane?
I voted yes.
Yes, okay, so it's 5-1.
5-1?
No,
One.
Who's the one? I
yeah,
didn't
5-1.
Jim.
Jim, okay.
Okay.
All right, now make a motion that we cover number 6.
Yeah, Ralph, actually, next motion is to adjourn.
Really?
Oh,
You
really?
gotta come back for one more?
No, we are, we're 10 minutes up, and that's our witching hour, and we're going home. So we'll have to pick it up on Thursday.
You can't use microfiche anymore.
No,
And you also,
it won't cost more.
I know, and you also said the town.
Good night, everybody.
Diane, thank you much. You'll be all set for Thursday?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you very much, Diane.